d4. Nevednichy is a strong GM, and we have the Queen's Gambit declined on the board. The time control is 15 minutes plus 5 seconds increment. We are playing at the Romanian Grand Prix in Cluj. Bishop g5 played, c6, e3. You can see Nihal blitzing out his moves. A move like bishop f5 is met with queen f3. So Nevednichy first pushes the bishop back, bishop h4, and now plays his bishop to d6. You can see Nihal trying to recollect his theory there and plays his bishop to d3. This is known as the very famous structure over here, with white having the pawns here, and generally you go for the queenside play with b4 b5 minority attack or f3 e4 in the center. Rook e8 played, and Nihal quickly castles it out. So the development of white has been completed, and now Nevednichy moves his knight to f8. Maybe the knight would like to come to g6, but for now that square is guarded. So rook b1, as we said, b4 b5, the Carlsbad structure here, very famous one. And now he goes bishop to g4. Very interesting move, because generally bishop g4 is met with knight e5, but here the square is well covered, so knight d2 is the normal move here. But Nihal does not really move the knight. He's like, if you take here, I'm fine with it, because my king is not weak. Later the bishop can come to g3. So Nevednichy goes a6, and he tells Nihal, you cannot push easily b5 here to create your minority attack. And he goes bishop to g3 now. But a4, rook c8 and bishop g3 takes. Pawn takes on g3. And now you can see the knight can jump in. So that's the reason why he takes, pawn takes. But this is what Nihal loves now, because now his king can come up to g2, and you can see how quickly he made that move. h5 was Nevednichy's idea, but Nihal will get the open h file and some attacking chances. There are also plans of sacrificing your bishop on g6, a5. This is a very committal move, because no longer are you trying for b5 break, but Nihal understands the nuances of the position. He understands that maybe another maneuver here is knight a4, with the idea of coming to c5 and attacking the b7 pawn. Very interesting play here by Nihal Sarin. Rook c7 played by Nevednichy, and now the knight comes and sits on a beautiful square. So white slowly trying to put pressure. The breaks g4 and e4 are in the air. Knight comes to e6. And you can see how the king on g7 is protecting against any sacrifices here. Rook h1 taking the open file. Well, Nevednichy cannot do much here. He has to wait. He goes with his rook to e7. And Nihal plays this very sly move. He is looking at the king here. He's looking at the e4 break at some point. Rook goes to h8. So the waiting game continues. How is Nihal going to make the next breakthrough is a great question. There's also f4, f5, not to forget. He goes rook d1. Ooh, he's preparing e4. He'll go bishop c2 and he'll push e4. That is his idea. And so black decides to take things in his own hands and now takes. B takes c5. Another advantage of the queen being on c3 is now the pawn is protected. The b7 pawn is a backward pawn. Let's see how Nihal takes advantage of it. The knight goes back to e8. When you have a positional advantage, Nihal Sarin is your man. He can put pressure like anything. He goes rook b1. Again, a very logical move, putting pressure on the b7 pawn. And Nevednichy goes queen c8, trying to defend the pawn. And now is it time for the central break of e4? I think it makes a lot of sense. Takes, looks good. But Nihal waits for a bit. He plays queen b2. He keeps up the pressure on b7. He has a lot of time on the clock as well. Ooh, f5 on the board. This is very risky play. This is actually very dubious. He's actually trying to stop e4, but in fact, e4 is going to come and Nihal finds it. Beautiful move here by Nihal Sarin, being tactically very aware, because after take, and take, d5 is an extremely powerful move with the bishop popping up on this diagonal. So he takes, pawn takes, and now you can't really take, as we discussed, because of d5, d6, and you get a passer right in the heart of the position. So the knight comes out to f6. But now, will Nihal push his pawn to e5? Yes, he does. The knight has to move away. Maybe knight e4, but then there is f3 in the position. So he goes knight to g4. And Nihal brings his queen in. The queen can go to now g5. There's also f3 that you want to kick away the knight. Very, very difficult for black. Goes rook f7, threatening to take here. Do you go f3 now? Just yes, f3 by Nihal. Look at how he adjusts the king and pushes the pawn forward. This game is actually a model game of how to play the Carlsbad structure. Also, black has been completely outplayed here. Okay, you can go queen g5. The problem is he'll play knight to f5. Yes, he plays his queen to g5. And now, after knight f5, which is kind of an important move, there's also queen e6, but then I just take the pawn because it's pinned on g6. So knight f5, and now the d4 pawn is hanging. So actually, rook b4 is a logical move. He goes g4. He goes g4 here. If h takes, then f takes, and the problem is there's a lot of pressure on g6. So he goes knight takes d4, and now Nihal takes on h5 first. He could have taken on g6 as well, but rook h5 is a very interesting decision by him, because I think if you take on h5, he will first take on g6 and then pick this up. So rook h5, and Nevednichy plays queen e6, but I think this is just game over now. Nihal Sarin takes on h8, king takes h8, and bishop takes g6 with the rook coming over. The rook is attacked. It's time to call it a day here. Nihal Sarin with 10 minutes on the clock out of 15. He's hardly used any time. In fact, 11 minutes he has. In 4 minutes, he beats a very, very good player. His opponent is a grandmaster, and he manages to win